Let's look at how we can write a formula for an exponential function passing through two given points. So here our points are -3, 4 over 125, and 120. So when we're thinking about writing an exponential function, we're thinking about a function of the form f of x equals a times b to the power of x. So we need to find a value for a, and we need to find a value for b. If we're given the y-intercept or the vertical intercept as one of our points, then that will tell us the value of a. But here, neither of our points is a vertical intercept, so we're going to need to solve for both a and b. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take each of these points and plug into my function. So when we see the point -3, 4 over 125, we could think of this in function notation as saying that f of -3 is equal to 4 over 125, thinking about an input and an output. So in our form of a times b to the x, this means that a times b to the -3rd power will be equal to 4 over 125. If we do that same thing with our other point, this point's telling us that f of 1 is equal to 20. So a times b to the 1st power is going to be equal to 20. So I now have two equations that each have two variables, a and b. So what I can do is I can solve one of my equations for a and make a substitution into my second equation. So I'm going to go ahead and take my first equation here and solve for a. So I'm going to divide both sides of my equation by b to the -3rd. So this gets my a alone on one side. So dividing by b to the -3rd, it's like 1 over b to the -3rd. So we could write this as 4 over 125 b to the -3rd. So I'm now going to take that expression for a and come over to my second equation and plug that in. So this gives us, instead of a, now we're going to write 4 over 125 b to the -3rd times b to the 1st is equal to 20. So a quick reminder of how negative exponents work. If you have anything raised to a negative power, it actually takes a reciprocal. So for example, if you had y to the -1st, that's the same as 1 over y to the 1st power. Let's move that over here. So again, if you had y to the -1st, that's the same as 1 over y. Y to the -2nd is 1 over y squared. Y to the -3rd is 1 over y cubed, and so on. So a negative exponent is actually an instruction to flip and take a reciprocal, and then the exponent becomes positive. Well, that also works then the other direction. So since we have a negative exponent that's down in the denominator, when we flip that, it's going to come up on top and become a positive exponent. So if we kind of move that 4 over 125 out in front, a b to the -3rd on the bottom is going to come up and become a b to the +3rd. We still have our b to the 1st equals 20. So b to the 3rd times b to the 1st, when we're multiplying, we add exponents together. So we'd have b to the 4th is equal to 20. I can get rid of this fraction by multiplying both sides by the reciprocal, because that causes the 125 and the 4 to cancel. So we have that b to the 4th. Using our calculator, 20 times 125 divided by 4 is 625. Since this is b to the 4th and we need to know b, we can take the 4th root of each side of our equation. Using our calculator, this tells us that b is equal to 5. Now, if you have a TI-83 or TI-84, to be able to take a 4th root of a number, you're going to need to hit your math button on your calculator, and you'll see your cubed root. We've used that previously. Below that, you'll see one that's actually the xth root. So actually what you're going to do before you hit the math button, you're actually going to type the number 4 on your calculator first, then hit the math button. Then come down and select the one that looks like the xth root in the menu. That will put the 4 into that index for your radical, and then you can type the 625. So type the number 4, then the math button, and then you'll select from the menu the one that looks like an xth root to do a 4th root of 625. So now we know that b is equal to 5, but we said we need to know both a and b. So now we're going to come back to one of our original equations. We can use either one, so I'm going to take the second one that was a little bit simpler, a times b to the first equals 20. So if a times b to the first is equal to 20, and now we know that b is just equal to 5, so 5 to the first is equal to just 5. Dividing by 5, we get that a is equal to 4. So our function would be f of x is equal to a, 4, times 5 to the power of x. You could check graphically that this graph really does go through the points 120 and -3, 4 over 125.